Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and just tell me what they do all day and let me record how this affects us. Thank you for listening.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I had no idea what I wanted to be, or I had lots of ideas of what I wanted to be at different times. So I think at one point it was a pilot, at another point I wanted to be a vet, a teacher, a marine biologist. I really didn't have any idea at all. It just changed all the time.
Pilot is an interesting one. That's a new one. Where did pilot come from, do you think?
The sky looks nice. I don't think there was any particular in-depth thinking into it other than what should I do, and just going through pretty much every job that's out there and thinking that might be fun and that might be fun.
Yeah, but you went straight to pilot. You didn't think, cabin crew. You were like, I could fly a plane.
Yeah, why not? I think anyone can do anything if they put their mind to it.
You're listening to Series 5, Episode 27, and to my guest, Bianca Spruit. This is another Squadcast interview recorded on the 26th of July, 2024. Hello, listener. With over 20 years' experience in the tech industry, Bianca Spruit created Sprout Coaching to support the growth of tech businesses by preparing their staff to be leaders and growing high-performing, happy teams. Bianca has personally experienced the frustrations of having managers who didn't support her to grow and of being a manager who wasn't sure how to bring out the best in her team. So, after qualifying as a coach herself, she started putting her newfound tools into practice, coaching her team, and the effects were incredible. Her team developed in ways she hadn't even realized were possible. Employee retention, as well as the quality of all work, vastly improved, and her own job became easier as the team were more confident, eager, and able to take on more responsibility, making everyone happier. This is why Bianca is so passionate about sharing her transformational coaching skills and supporting as many people as possible to be the most effective, supportive managers they can be. Right, let's do this. Episode 137 of Working Hours with Bianca Spruit.
So what is it that you're doing now then?
So now I'm a leadership coach, specifically working with tech companies and getting their staff ready for people management roles. I've worked in tech all my life, and when mostly tech companies are usually moving really fast. So I've worked in a few scale-ups and startups, and it's really hard to get the people management bit right when you're moving so fast. A lot of the time you see people getting promoted because they were really awesome at their job and really, really great at often the technical stuff. And so they're promoted into management, even though they've never done any management before. They might not have the skills, and often don't have any support or training to move into it either. So it's really hard for them to get it right and to do a good job. So that's why I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into tech companies and make that journey easier for new people managers and leaders to get it right and do a good job, and that way everyone's happier and the business gets a better result. It's just a win-win all round.
How did you go from being in that situation where I guess you've said of like being in various companies where you like seeing the same thing over and over again? What made you take that leap and go, right, this needs fixing. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to offer this. There's a gap in the market here.
Yeah.
I can do this. This is what I'm going to go for.
Quite a few things went into that decision, really. And a number of years ago, I was working for a company where the culture it wasn't right for me. I was not happy at all. And it got to a point where I thought, no, I have to do something else. And I didn't really know if I wasn't happy in the company or if I was just fed up with tech or if I was fed up with the role I was doing. And I knew I wanted to do something different and something to ideally help people not feel how I was feeling at the time, because I was in a pretty bad place. So I thought, right, well, that would be counselling or maybe coaching. And I didn't really understand the difference between the two. So I went off, found out what the difference was and fell in love with coaching, and went and trained to be a coach. I didn't leave my job yet at that point because I needed the money and I needed the security. So I just brought my coaching skills back into how I was managing my team. And everything changed. It was just like someone had sprinkled magic on my team. They were suddenly developing, and people. I remember one person who I was often very frustrated with, who didn't seem to be able to solve anything for themselves. Always just came to me with the problems, and with me changing what I was doing and coaching, they started to develop and started to solve problems for themselves. And yeah, I just saw such a change in them. And I realized, hey, I'd been really frustrated by them, but actually a lot of it was on me. And I just hadn't realized it before. And by just tweaking what I was doing, I could have such a big positive effect on him and the rest of my team. So that was a real light bulb moment for me. And as I said, I really fell in love with coaching. I didn't straight away go and start my own business because that's a big, scary thing. So I was coaching on the side as a bit of a side hustle, and I left that job. I went and worked for a different startup who were already embracing coaching and really believed in it, and that was great. That was a really good move because it meant while I was coaching people on the side, I could also coach my team. I could run workshops for the company I was working in. I could work with other managers. I could do a lot of different types of coaching and try a lot of the different things out and see what worked and what didn't work. And that was really great to be supported in that. And then COVID happened.
Let's go into the COVID story.
Okay.
But then as you think about that, obviously you're telling us the sort of going inside, but the other thing to look at is, I mean, obviously you're going to have a whole change of work. But my question is normally like, what happened as we went into lockdown? How did your work get affected then? And then how did it change coming out? But it changed entirely for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So lots of things changed a lot for me. So to start with, when I was still working in that company, we had to work more remotely, which wasn't such a big deal for a tech company because you're already set up to do a lot of that stuff from a tech point of view. But what we had to think about was how to create new ways to make sure the team were okay. And I'd built a really close-knit team and we worked really well together, but then suddenly not seeing each other. And some of the team thrived under that and loved it. And some really missed that connection. So it's how to keep that. So that was interesting. And also meant that I learned some new skills and some new ways of doing things, which is always great. Also, I was still coaching people on the side, and people just started realizing how there's much more to life than just work and just doing a job that doesn't fulfill you. So I found a lot more people started thinking about, well, how can I get some help in getting to where I want to be in life and feeling more fulfilled and feeling more happy? So people were looking to coaching more. So I was working with more people on the side, And with the world opening up more, because everyone being connecting so much more remotely, I started working with people all over the world, really. There weren't really any barriers. There weren't before that, but I think people were a lot more open to just having online meetings because it just became the norm. And another big thing that changed was I had a child during COVID. So that changed things quite a bit, because then I had maternity leave, and my whole focus on my life changed and what was important to me. Just thinking about what I wanted the world to be for her when she grew up, and what kind of a role model I wanted to be, and what I wanted her to see me doing. I started thinking about working for myself and doing something that really made me feel great. And that's what gave me the push, really, to go and work for myself.
I mean, in terms of the hours that you were doing when we went into lockdown, did it stay the same? And what was the workload like? Was it about the same? Because you could do most of your job remotely, I guess, and you were kind of set up already because of in that sector.
Yeah.
People were already working from home. Most people had some kind of facility to work from home. So was it just a matter of your workplace surroundings changed for a bit?
Yeah.
And the conditions, like the emotional and psychological conditions changed, but the work was pretty much the work still.
Yeah, pretty much. Still worked the same hours, if not slightly more hours, because there's not as obvious a kind of end to the day where you leave the office and go home.
You did the other thing where you were like, you didn't benefit from the bonus hours of not having to travel. You were like, oh, I'll do more work.
Yeah, I tried to recognize that and tried to stop on time, but yeah, quite often it would kind of run on a bit.
When you're in the middle of something as well, though, and you're like, oh, it's only going to take me another 20 minutes or whatever. It's like,
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So it's better for me to get it out of the way now. Okay, the company's benefiting from me, but like...
Yeah, but if there's a train to catch, then that's a definite cut-off point.
Well, that's a different matter, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This will have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I have to leave 20 minutes early.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the leadership and stuff. So let's dip into your experiences of moving into leadership roles. Like, what kind of support did you have? What training, if any, were you given for those moves? Were you given any kind of like strategic or business training, or were you given any people training, or was it like, here are the keys and this is how you cash up and here's your card to do this?
That just made me think of my old job at Blockbuster Video years ago, when I was given the keys and had to lock up and cash up. My first roles in management, no training, no support. Not that the people I was working with were unsupportive. It was just not thought about. This is your new role.
Like,
these are the
your
people.
Job hasn't changed.
Yeah,
you're just doing the same. No, it's entirely changed, and my relationship to all my colleagues has changed.
Yeah, and you have less time to do the job you were doing before. However, it's somehow expected that you'll still do the job you're doing, but you're now also responsible for everyone else as well. So my first few roles of managing, I was just figuring it out myself. I guess thinking about people who had managed me well and being inspired by that. Looking at the examples of where people had not managed well, and also being inspired in different ways by that. And and also I'd always been really interested in psychology and in how people think, and I think that's really set me up well for management, because from the start, really, I was very interested in what motivates people, how to make a nice, happy, supportive environment for people to work in. So I just kind of played around with different ideas and different ways of doing things, and did a bit of reading here and there. And then it wasn't until several roles in, when I worked for a company, that they were prepared to give me some money to go and do a proper course, which I didn't really find that useful, actually. After having already managed people for several years, I found the course very theoretical, and I didn't really. It was interesting. I was learning interesting things, but not that much that I could bring back into the workplace and actually use with my team. When I went myself and put myself on through the coaching qualification, that was way more practical, and I wasn't doing that with the idea of, oh, I'm doing this for my work and I'm going to use it in my management role. I didn't think about that at all to start with, but it ended up that had a huge effect on how I manage my team.
So that was a teaching how to teach course. So it's teaching you the pedagogy, the theory of how you're going to get across these lessons, or how do you make something a lesson? Is that the kind of training that was
No. It was much more. So
is it more about motivating people and like
it's really
more people oriented?
Coaching is really about having a very solid belief that the person who you have in front of you has the answers that they need, or has the ability to go and get the answers that they need. So a common problem that I see in management, and something that I did as well when I was first starting managing, is just giving the answers, trying to help, thinking you're being really helpful by when someone has a problem. You say, okay, well, I've got the experience, I've seen this, I know what the solution is because I've been there, I've done that. So I'm obviously going to tell you how to solve it. And you give them the answers. And all that happens is next time there's a problem, they're going to come to you again and say, right, now I've got this problem, what do I do this time? And they're never learning to solve problems for themselves. They're not building the confidence in their own ideas of how to solve problems. So the coaching course that I went through was, it sounds really simple, but it was very in depth. It was all about learning to shut up and listen, like really properly listen, not in a way where you're listening and thinking about the next thing you want to say, but listening and being curious about what the other person's saying. And then when they come to you with a problem, instead of giving the answer, saying things like, so have you seen this problem before? And what happened that time? How was it solved? Did that work? Is there anything better we could have done? What did we learn from when it happened the time before? And just talking through the thinking process. And after you've done that a few times, people start going through that thinking process themselves without having to come to you. And before you know it, you don't even know about half the problems, because people don't need to bring them to you because they're already solved. That's what the coaching course was. It was learning how to ask the right questions, how to be really curious, how to read other people and what they're saying and what they mean. And yeah, it was so interesting, and you learn a lot about yourself at the same time as well. I remember one exercise we did on that course, actually, which was you had to face another person, and one person had to listen to music through their headphones, so loud that you couldn't hear what was going on outside your headphones. And the other person had to tell a story about something that had happened to them, anything at all. And then afterwards, the person who'd been listening to the music had to say what they thought the other person had been telling them. And it was amazing how close you could get to what the story the person had actually been saying, because of the energy they bring, the body language, the facial expressions. There's so many different cues that you don't realize you're picking up on all the time. So there was lots about that as well, just reading people's cues and learning how to work with people in the most effective way, so that they can get the most out of, so that they can get to where they want to be, whatever their goal is.
Was your course all class-based, or were you doing any online at the time?
This was way before COVID, and I was actually travelling down to London to go to a school there to learn. There were online options, there were options closer to home, but I had looked around various different ways of doing it, and I wanted to find the best way for me that I thought was going to give me the best result. And this school in London was really great. I made a really good choice there. So I think once a month I went down for a weekend, and then there was lots of online stuff as well, online calls with tutors, lots of reading to do, lots of writing to do, lots and lots of practice hours of coaching various different people. Yeah.
And it's good to be in that space, isn't it, of like when you are learning stuff and it's part of your work, but it's outside of the work. So it's a nice space to think in, because it's kind of a liminal space between work and pleasure, where you're kind of like, you can play with ideas of, I could take these ideas and I could put them into work, or I could put them into other work somewhere else, or I could apply this somewhere else, or what does that mean for my career and my work and what I want to do.
Yeah. I think to begin with, when I was doing the course, I wasn't thinking about the job I was in at the time at all, because, as I said, I wasn't happy there. And in my mind, this coaching was going to take me away from that job, and so that I didn't have to do it anymore. It wasn't until maybe halfway through the course that I started to think, actually, this has got lots of other real world applications other than just going and starting up a coaching business. I can use this where I am now to make things better for my team and for me as well. Yeah.
I think that's an important part of the story as well. Like your story of, I learned this thing, then I came back and I applied some of the lessons and it worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it does work. And then, you go from there.
Yeah, that's why.
But that's a revelation as well in itself of like, oh, this actually works. So, like seeing that actual feedback and seeing results and that's something that you can tweak and build on. And
yeah, it was huge, and it was so exciting because it really did have such big effects. And I ended up being asked in that company. I stayed there for a little while actually, and I ended up being asked to manage other teams because I was really successful with building my team and running the team in a very different way than anyone else was doing. And that got noticed. So I ended up working with several different teams in that way. And that was really great.
So the original training then, who did that come from? Was that from them or was that from you? Did you push them to sort of pay for it, or did you ask that you could go and do it?
I paid for it. It was nothing to do with work at all. It was my route out of work, I thought. It was a lot of money as well. So it was a big chunk of money, but I thought it was worth it.
Because you're investing in yourself.
Yeah, and I thought, well, this could possibly be something that I want to do in future to work for myself, and a great way to work with other people and help them to be happier and more fulfilled in their life, which is is my whole kind of reason for doing this, really. The fact that it coincides nicely with great results for businesses as well is great,
Win-win.
Yeah, but it all came from me wanting to do that course. And it was all in my own time.
Would it ever have occurred to you to go, look, I want to do this? Like, did you ever look at learning and development policies within organizations that you were in? And was there anything ever said to you about, okay, you get so much budget for training for like each staff member? Was anything ever discussed on that?
At that place, no. And I felt very strongly that it wouldn't be supported. I didn't feel there was...
What about other places?
Other places, yes. I mean, the places before that, it's difficult when you're working for startups because there's a limited amount of money as well. And also, I didn't really know what coaching was until I was miserable enough that I thought I need to do something else. So I wouldn't have even known what to go and look for. I think...
it made the job valuable as well, didn't it? Because you kind of, like, now the job is paying for the coaching training. It's like... it's doing something extra now, so you're extracting a bit more value from the job, even though, so that that's keeping you there. The training is kind of keeping you there because it's paying for the training.
Yeah, definitely. And it would have been really valuable for that company, and it would have been a great move for them to pay for that training, because it would have paid off, because I was doing a much better job, and my
Hmm.
team were a lot happier. I mean, the retention rate, if you looked at my team and looked at other teams, it was, people just didn't leave my team. Um,
Hmm.
and and you know how expensive it is to employ, to recruit people and to keep
Hmm.
people in jobs. It's such a problem in tech companies in particular as well. So if you
Hmm.
build this great culture for people, and a way in which they can develop and feel empowered and have autonomy, then that's a great way to keep people with you, because you're
Hmm.
treating them really well, and they're developing. So yeah, why wouldn't they stay?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorite sayings on here. They're sort of like, what if I train my staff and they leave? What if you don't and they stay?
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, and the other thing is, like, you're actually giving something to your employees of, like, and they feel they're getting something back, so they value that. They don't feel like they're just having to turn up for a paycheck and they're just drones and it doesn't matter who they are and what, because one's just the same as another that comes in, that comes through the the recruitment cycle and the turnover of staff, and
yeah,
it's like, oh, you do, you're someone doing this thing, moving that thing around until we need someone else to do it. And it's like, well, no, I'm a person as well, so I'm capable of doing all sorts of different things.
yeah,
And if you engage me, there's probably things that are kind of, you know maybe at my pay grade that I can add value to, that isn't like just extra work for me, that adds value to me because I've got some kind of responsibility. My role seems like it's more important. It's not just a cog,
yeah.
like, I am part of a company. I
Yeah,
am a person
absolutely. And
who
I
is
think
part
you
of a
miss out
company
on
of
so
people.
much by just treating all employees the same way. And it's only too easy to look at how someone's performing and what they do and what they've done before, and think, well, you put them in a box and decide, well, that's what they're capable of. But I've seen myself that if you stretch people a little,
Mm,
and ask them to do things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone, but then support them, then they're often capable of so much more. I can think of one guy who came to me from a call center, and that's all he'd known, answering phones, and I could have just assumed, well, that's what he can do. I'll keep him doing that, and he progressed to being IT manager of the company. And there's a few different stories like that I've seen, and it's part of it is it's believing in people, it's asking them the right questions and supporting them to be able to think for themselves
mm,
and problem solve themselves. And it's also part of it's assessing risk as well, and where you can take some risk and allow
mm-hmm,
people to try out different ideas. I think as a manager, it can be quite, like I said, you just want to give the answer, and that's a very natural thing to do. And when someone comes to you with a problem, you automatically, if you've seen it before, you automatically think you know the best way to do things. And they might say, oh, I want to try this. And in your head, you're thinking, well, no, that's not the best way because I've seen this work. And you really feel so sure that you have the best answer. But sometimes it's great just to keep your mouth shut and ask them a few questions around it and say, oh, okay, well, but how would this impact it? And do you think this would be a risk? And or how could this be a risk? And how could this work better than this? And just ask different questions around it. And then if they have
mm-hmm.
answers to those things, then say, okay, well, let's go and try it. And fairly often that person will come back and show you that actually the idea is brilliant and it worked, and often way better than what you had in your head. So just being open to other people having better ideas than you, even if they're way less experienced, and that really helps to build people's confidence, and because the next time a problem comes up, they're going to feel great about coming up with different ideas, trying different ideas out. If they don't work, then that's okay. Just supporting people in that discovery process where you can.
And it's that thing. So the other thing that I talk about of like, as I have heard it. So, but the three key things to making a really good job are a level of autonomy, purpose, and mastery. Like, so you know that you're able to do your job, that you can get better at your job, and that there's a reason for doing your job. A lot of the times, a role is the kind of, so you've got the general kind of gist of the role, because there's the relationship between a JD and an actual job. It's very spurious at best, isn't it? And like most people, they read their job descriptions now and they're like, I don't do any of that, and I do all these things instead. So they're kind of bolt-ons. So it's kind of like learning additional skills, but then you're also working with people because we're trained into this. It's like the example you used of the call center. It's like, okay, but someone in a call center has a massive transferable skills that they won't be aware of. You know, like they've got all the people skills and customer service skills. They've got the researching skills, the ability to use all the, you know, company policies and stuff and refer back to things to find all the information that they need. You know, you even using the office equipment and even like the building health and safety, all of this knowledge is there, you know, but you don't think to list all of these things on a CV or think that this skill that I'm using here could be applied over there at X level or doing something else. And I think that's, it's opening those doors for people. It's like you said, you know, with the whole thing with coaching and learning is it's that when doors open and you're like, not just is this really interesting, but the potentials and possibilities from this idea and where I can take this idea or this skill or, you know, that's where it gets really exciting. It's all the new potential. I think, anyway, that's my personal sort of thing of like when I get excited about ideas, it's like, oh, does that work with
You're right,
this?
people
And does it
don't
work over
recognise
there?
those
And how does it
transferable
interact
skills,
with that?
and it's really good to recognise those and also recognise how different solutions can be used in different ways in different places. And with tech, there's so many different things you can learn, and there's so many which can be really scary. But as long as you accept I'm never going to know everything, then and embrace what you do know and always open to learn more, then the sky's the limit really with what you can do within tech. And when you're talking about job descriptions, and I totally agree, they're just a work of fiction a lot of the time. And I think in places where I've worked before, we've put so much work into creating the right job description to attract the right person for the role. And I think a lot of the time the job descriptions are really over-engineered and have way too much in them. And we make it just so complicated to get people in. And so many people will be, and so many people are put off when they see the job description and they'll think, well, I don't have those things, so I'm not going to bother applying. And actually it was, when I look back on my career, I realised actually all the businesses I've worked for, almost all the businesses, I've gone in to create a function and set up a team that wasn't there before. And always used to start with really complicated job descriptions. And then towards, like further on in my career, I realised actually the thing I need are not all of these technical skills and not this ability to code different languages and to work with certain types of software. And what I need is people who really want to learn, and people who are able to learn. You know, people who are keen, and that's what you need. If they're capable of learning, which most people are, and if they want to, then that's great. If you've got someone keen, that's way better than someone who's like not really that interested in what they're doing, but they've got lots of technical skills. I'd much rather have the person with no technical skills, who's really excited to get their teeth stuck in.
How do you deal with the people that don't want to be coached? Like, I mean, do you just leave them alone, or are you kind of like, have you got ways to sort of, is it more a matter of like, okay, I have to think about this more and I have to work on the encouragement and sort of, I don't know, coach by stealth, sort of thing? Like,
Um,
how
yeah, they
does
don't really
those
get
sort of
much
interactions
choice
work?
in my teams. No, no, but
You can't teach someone who doesn't want to learn, can you? You just
I don't know. I think coaching isn't.
unless they just see
I
you
think
doing something over and
certain
over and they
things
just
need
learn
to be
by
learned
sight.
to
But
do a role, and certain things maybe someone else in the team can do. And it's important to look at people's strengths and what people are interested in, and where possible, let them pursue those passions and those things they're really interested in. And if you can do that and have a well-rounded team and everyone can cover the bits that need covering, then great. I think people mostly do want to learn and progress, but just not in everything. They don't necessarily want to learn everything. And coaching isn't about teaching anyway. It's about being curious, and it's more, I guess you could call it teaching other people to learn rather than teaching them specific topics. So like I said, just asking the right questions to lead people to come to their own answers. So if you're coaching someone, you can't really avoid being coached. So because all you're doing is answering questions. And most of the time when you're being coached and you find that, oh, actually, I knew more than I thought, or I now have an answer and I didn't think I could do that before. It builds people's confidence. It makes them feel good about themselves, and it makes people more open to learn more as well. Yeah. So I was trying to think where I've worked with people who just weren't interested, but I think you've probably taken the wrong people on and have the wrong people in the team. If they're not interested in learning, then they probably shouldn't be in your team anyway. So I did see that when I very first started coaching. So I had just trained as a coach. I started bringing back my coaching skills into how I manage my team, and I think that was probably a bit of a shock to the team because they were so used to me giving the answers whenever they came to me with the problem. And then suddenly I wasn't giving all the answers anymore. So I can see why that would have been really frustrating for them because it wasn't what they were used to. So like I said, I would instead be saying things like, oh, well, what have you thought about doing? And, just ask lots of different questions around it instead. But I think it's really important to explain why you're coaching and why you're doing what you're doing. And explain that you really want to help them to develop and to progress in their career and to get to where they want to be, and the idea behind coaching, and that you're helping them to problem solve, you're helping them to come up with their own ideas, and then get that buy-in first. Yeah, I think that's really important. But most people, I think, are pretty receptive to it, and if they aren't, then maybe it might be that they're in the wrong job. It might be that they're not particularly interested in what they're doing, but then you can again use coaching and just be curious and just very open with them and say, this is what I'm noticing when I'm working with you. I'm noticing that you're not answering my questions, or not very receptive, or whatever it is I'm noticing. And then just ask them about their experience and what it is that they're thinking and feeling. Because there could be something else going on for them personally. It could be nothing to do with work. It could be something outside of work. It could be a whole load of different things. And unless you ask the question and build up a really good relationship with your team so that they know that they can have those types of conversations with you, if you don't ask those questions, you'll never know, and you'll just make assumptions and maybe write someone off, whereas there's something else that needs solving to allow them to continue to grow and develop.
We've kind of done COVID. Do you want to add anything additional to sort of the COVID experience, or anything that you want to say on that? Or
I think we're now seeing in tech and I don't know what it's like in other industries, but particularly in tech, where everyone obviously had to work remotely, we're now seeing a lot of companies who are trying to get people back into the business and into the building again. And that's pretty tricky, because I think it does work better for some types of teams, but for other teams, so maybe if you're a software engineer, this is huge, broad, sweeping generalizations, but there are quite a few software engineers who like to just sit there quietly without any interruptions, coding, and working from home means that they can do that, and they're not getting interrupted, and then being asked to go back into the building again is pretty is pretty big ask, because they've been performing really well working from home, and often it's just someone maybe in senior leadership or someone at the top of the company just likes seeing people there. Seeing a lot of that at the moment, and that's interesting. I think the companies that are doing the best that I'm seeing are ones where there's some flexibility. But it's difficult as well, offering flexibility with some teams and then expecting something different from other teams. So I get that it's a really difficult one to solve.
I think there's an assumption within certain sectors or certain imaginations that it's this sort of one size fits all approach. It's like all businesses are the same. Any business is like any other. They just need to be run, and like there are these mechanisms that work. And the same with industries, and like they're all the same. Everything's the same, even within one particular company. You're basically doing all the same thing, even though you're not, but you are, because you're all working for the same company. I think we saw that a little bit with COVID, with the lockdowns, where the lockdown was like, right, everybody stay at home, and then they were like, oh, hang on, no, not everybody. These people, you go in. Also these people, and and you need some of the, and then it was all like all of the stuff started to be, oh, you need that and we need this, and we hadn't thought about that, but generally it's this, okay, everybody go work from home, now everybody come back in. It's like the sensible places, and but for some places it didn't make a difference because nothing changed for them, and then for other places it's like, well, we sat down, we talked to our staff, we discussed what's best for them, and we discussed what's best for us. And in some instances, it's like, it's better if we're only open for so many, or like we reduce our office size and move to a smaller office, and most people work from home. Or it's better if we've got this office, it's a good office, get your backside in, work here. But that's part of being part of the company that you're working with, and I think that has to be, you have to be involved in that discussion, is what I'm saying. I think, because otherwise, if it's decided for you, then it's like, well, I don't like this, and I'm looking for another job, ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said before, retention is a big issue for tech companies. So involving people in decisions.
Absenteeism as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, training is really good for sort of reducing sick days and like staff turnover and absenteeism and stuff. So let's. Oh, I want to ask you about coaching remotely. How was that? What was the change in that, and like how have you kind of negotiated that? Are you happy to sort of do sessions at large scale? Do you prefer more one-to-one? Like, how do you like to work, and how does that translate to being, so sort of doing it online? Are you fine with it all, and you're just like, I just enjoy the thing and I've adapted to each thing? Or you're like, I hate this, but I love this?
I think the one-to-one stuff, totally fine online and makes sense. There's no travel time for anyone involved, and it's just so it makes it so accessible for people. So one-to-one, totally fine. I also do workshops, so things like team building workshops. Those I prefer to do face-to-face, because you miss quite a bit of body language, and it just works better in a room if you can. But I have also run.
I think it has to be.
Yeah.
Surely it has to be in person, because it's like, I mean, it's a team unbuilding exercise online, I think, unless the team's already built. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, I don't want to be here. But like when other people are there, at least you've got the interactions of like, you know, people will cheer you up, or they'll get you involved, or they won't get you involved. Like you've got all the team dynamics actually happening, whereas people can just put a camera on or turn it off, or, you know, they can sit there
Yeah.
nodding and have the sound off.
Yeah, and face-to-face sessions, you have the chat before you go into the room and you have the chat afterwards, and it's often those kind of little follow-up conversations where something really special comes out as well. I have run workshops online that have worked really well, but not particularly, not as much team building exercises. It might be where there's a group of individuals who all wants to achieve a certain thing, or I'm working through using a particular coaching tool for helping to build confidence, things like that. So it's not something that that involves a team having to work together as such, and you can have breakout rooms and things like that so that people can interact with each other, and that works fine. But I do prefer the team stuff in a room if I can.
I'm just going to throw in a silly question because I've thought of it. Do you ever have to wear a tracksuit for your coaching? Or have you for comedy effect?
No, but now I'm considering it. Oh dear, that just
Definitely in your social media.
that's this is just occurred to me when you asked that question. It reminds me of a question I used to be asked. I used to be a lifeguard, and
Oh, right, cool.
I used to lifeguard nudist sessions.
Okay.
And so I was often asked about the uniform you had to wear for that, and whether you were also had to be nude, which you did not have to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an interesting
But
job as well, though.
well, I think that like there's a legitimate reason there as well, because you have to be identifiable. Like, so you
Yes.
have to wear something that identifies you as the
goodness.
lifeguard. So
Yeah.
you know, it's not just spoiling the aesthetic of everyone else. So, God, that must have been interesting. How long did you do that for?
I lifeguarded for years. My dad was always the manager of a swimming pool.
Yeah.
So it was like quite a natural thing. All of me and my brothers became lifeguards. So yeah, I did it for a long time, just as a part-time job as I was growing up, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I have an interview on it, but it's only available behind the Patreon with someone who's a lifeguard.
Okay.
Yeah, that's throwing me. So where were we? Oh yeah, I was asking you about dressing up as a coach, which I was going to use as a segue into social media. I'm just thinking. I'll ask the question first, and then we'll see where this goes, and then if I need to, I'll come back to what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
So. Yeah, social media wise, I like to look at your return on investment. So how much time do you put into creating social media and being on social media, working on social media? And does it give you the return on investment that you want? Is it like, I have to put out 20 posts a week, otherwise I'm not going to have any work next week. I don't care what they are, I just need to put them out. Or is it like, I have a day where I schedule all my posts and they're all brilliant and targeted and they're all synergized with wonderful things going on? Or are you like, somebody does that for me? I hate it. Like, how is your approach to social media? Like, do you know what you do? I mean, obviously you're in the tech field, so one could assume that you're a social media whiz, because a lot of people assume that
No.
you do computer so good.
Not at all. I think social media is more maybe marketing than it is tech. And yeah, I've had an interesting relationship with social media. I guess it's not my favorite place to be, but it's a very important place to be. And so it's actually not that long ago that I changed to working with businesses. Before that, when I first started out on my own, it was very much B2C, and so it was Instagram where I was. I've now changed that to being on LinkedIn, although really I need to think about being everywhere, but I just don't have the energy for that just yet. But I was very much on Instagram, and I learned how to do it, and I learned all the kind of tips and tricks and how to work with the algorithm and how to present yourself and have a mixture of different types of posts and have your face on there, and particularly with coaching, to make sure that I'm talking like on videos so that people can get to know me. And I found it very tiring doing that. And it wasn't something that came very naturally to me, and it's been quite a steep learning curve. And a lot of the time when I was doing it on Instagram, I'd feel like, oh, why am I bothering with this? Is this really doing anything? Because most of the time my clients would come from a referral from a previous client. They wouldn't come from social media that often. But I think I probably wasn't at it for long enough before I decided actually I really wanted to go and work with businesses, and kind of had a bit of a light bulb moment there. But saying that, I would get to these points where I'd think, should I be bothering? Should I be putting all this effort in? And then I'd receive messages from people who I had no idea they'd been looking at my posts, no idea they'd been reading them, and telling me what a difference certain things I've been saying or sharing had made to them in their lives. And they'd made some really big changes to their lives and changed it for the better. And they were thanking me, and it was just wonderful. It's just given me shivers now, like just thinking about some of the wonderful messages I had. I mean, they didn't bring me any money in, but but they
cheered you up for a bit, though.
Yeah, but I mean, really, I want to make a difference, and so they did really mean a lot to me. So now I'm just on LinkedIn. I will think about expanding out to other places eventually. For a while, I was just copying everything I was putting on LinkedIn onto Instagram and Facebook, and then it just felt a bit pointless because it's a slightly different audience, and really it needed something slightly different, I think. So yeah, at the moment I'm concentrating on LinkedIn. I think I'm posting 3 times a week generally, unless ad hoc things come up, then sometimes it's a bit more. I'm doing all right at it. I could definitely do better and be more targeted and thoughtful about how I put things out and what I put out, and making it a bit more varied, possibly.
I mean, would you want to focus in that? Would you want to personally get better at the social media? Like, is it important to you to keep reflecting like your brand, your coaching style, the way that you do it, and have your voice in your social media? Or would you rather somebody else takes care of that, gets me the jobs, and I do the job and I deliver the job, and people are happy with what I've delivered and they come back?
Yeah.
You know, like, would you rather be focusing on doing the work that you want to do, or is there more pull to have, I can't phrase this in any better way because it's in my mind, but like the pull of social media of like being perceived as being the expert, you know, like because a lot of that social media, the clout is kind of like, yeah, I'm the person in this field that knows, I'm the authority, that's why I'm on all the things, and that's why you keep seeing me everywhere, and why I keep getting reposted on this hashtag. Like, would you rather just be like, I want to be doing solid work, I want to be getting paid, like I've got my asking amount, I want to do these many hours, I don't want to be, you know, insert social media influencer here. So what's your feeling on that kind of thing?
So this is something I've asked myself a lot, actually, because I think, if I'm really honest, it would be lovely if someone just took that work away from me and I didn't have to do the social media. But being a coach, it's so much about building personal relationships that I just don't know if and how it would work to have somebody else writing things that are my views, because they're not me. So I know people can do that and can do that well, but at the moment I'm probably more comfortable with doing it myself, and feeling that everything's authentically me. Yeah, for now that's how I feel, even though I don't particularly enjoy it. I definitely feel a lot happier on LinkedIn than I did on Instagram, actually. Yeah, it's a better place for me.
I think it's a really weird one, you know, in that area, because you kind of like, there's a level at which you're sort of like, I don't want anyone posting anything out that I don't know about, that you know, like if I'm going to get shouted at for stuff that I've posted, I want to have posted it.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're kind of like, but if someone else was posting it, I would probably be less, you know, it would probably be better because they would have a bit of a, you know, a bit of a critical distance.
Yeah, and they'd that would be their job, so they would know what they were doing.
They've
lot
got
better
more
than
of a
me.
filter, and they don't want to upset you as much as they don't want to upset the internet, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's a bit of an extra safety, I think.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're like, but what if they do it wrong? Which kind of comes to that whole thing of, I mean, this was something else that I was going to discuss in the realm of coaching. That it's that sort of thing of, and it's come up on the podcast before, people needing permission to do stuff, even stuff they know how to do. Can I do the thing that I'm supposed to do? Like, should I do it now? Am I, what do I do it over there? Like, a lot of people need to be told, like, giving a green light of you can do that. I know you know how to do it, but you have to be told to do it. And other people are kind of like, some people are just kind of like, we'll do whatever, yay. But a lot of people now, especially now, seems to need direction, permission, to be told, to be handheld and told a bit more. Have you found that?
Yes, but I think coaching gets around that quite nicely, because if you're doing pure coaching, then you're never giving advice. Often there'll be a bit of a mix in there, and you might offer your opinions or advice. But if you're just coaching, then if someone tries to say, well, can I do this? Is it all right for me to go ahead and do that? And if you're coaching, then the answer is, what do you think? What would be the reasons to not do that? What would be the reasons to do that? What could help you to make the decision? And then there's also lots of tools that you can use where to help you maybe map out on paper the pros and cons, and what would happen if I do this, but also what would happen if I don't do this, which is often something that people don't look at and can be really useful as well.
Yeah, that's very underappreciated. Yeah, and you should look at both sides. It's that there's a lot of tools that should be used in a lot of situations that we don't, you know, it's like you should always do a risk assessment. You should always do a cost benefit analysis. you should do a, you know, which should include legal and you know, and include bits of your risk analysis and all these sorts of things. It's like there is a level of, you know, just go and do it, but also should we just check the legality of it in some way before we do, and do a bit of a, but you can't waste too much time on the preparation either as well, because otherwise you never do it, do you? So
no, and also when you are coaching, there has to be a balance between is this the right time to coach, or is this actually the right time to just give an answer? Because if the building's on fire and people are asking, should I leave? You don't want to be saying, well, exactly how hot is the fire? You know, have you seen a fire before? Did you get
what do
burned?
you know about the fire drill procedure?
Yeah.
Have you seen what other people are doing? Are they leaving the building? Am I going out? Yeah. Okay, so let's jump back into questions, do a few more. So we'll do... let's do Brexit first, then we'll do climate change. So Brexit-wise, I don't see how this could or would... maybe the types of training that you're delivering or whatever. But has Brexit affected your work at all?
No, I'd say the only way I have been affected by Brexit is I had to apply for settlement status. Because I only have a Dutch passport. I don't have a British passport. So yeah, I was affected in that way, which didn't feel very nice. I was born in England. I have always lived here, and I had to apply to be able to stay here. So, but work-wise, no, it hasn't really changed anything for me.
So yeah, I'm thinking, were you based mostly down south? I'm trying to place the accent. I'm trying to place your English accent.
Norfolk. I'm from Norfolk originally.
Norfolk.
Yeah,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
that I don't think I have a particularly Norfolk accent, but I don't know if that's because
No, but yeah,
I think I have
it,
having Dutch parents. I think might have gone some way to neutralising my accent,
well, that's it.
possibly.
And the sort of neutral English accent is kind of it's not Sheffield and York. It's not like Yorkshire and Lancashire, is it?
No, no.
Um, so yeah, Brexit wise, we've done that and not really made a change for you. Climate change wise, I mean, I guess initially, well, I suppose you started during lockdown. Like travel's not a big thing for you, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you do a lot of face to face, but like climate wise, like I guess you're not that huge impact anyway. So, is there much that you could change, or like what's your relationship between work and climate? Is it
Um,
something that features in your work?
um, I don't think I have a very big impact to make, but I will make a positive impact and positive change where I can. So things like I will get public transport instead of taking the car wherever I possibly can if I'm traveling to see clients. Um, I don't really print much paper. I don't, do anything like that. Um, yeah, I think I have whatever positive impact I can in my personal life. I recycle. I shop in charity shops a lot actually because I hate waste and there's just so many clothes being produced all of the time that that's over the last few years I try to reuse things as much as I possibly can. Um,
What
yeah,
about consumables? Do you go through a lot of post-it notes? Post-it notes, felt tip pens, and A3 charts? So they
no, I don't actually. No, I mostly use my laptop and I'd say
do
I'm
you use
not.
any props or slides or anything, or is it like are you mainly just coaching? Like, is it just conversational, face to face?
Um, a lot of it's conversational. If I'm seeing a client, then there might be a big whiteboard that I might use. I use a lot of things just on my laptop and then might connect to a bigger screen or something like that. Yeah, sometimes there might be some use of post-it notes, but things like that, but not a great deal to be honest.
What about so you don't have to produce materials or handouts or supports or like particular resources or anything?
Yeah, a lot of the time, if I'm coaching people online, doing my one-to-one stuff, then I will be emailing different resources across. So they may then get printed by the people I'm sending them to. If I'm working with a group, um, I don't do much printed out stuff. There's some, but yeah, not a great deal really.
And do you see yourself branching out into other sectors, or do you want to stick in that sector? Like, because that's a good niche, and it's like an area that and like the culture, the sector.
Yeah, and it is my world really working in tech, but I've been doing quite a bit of networking recently, and sometimes purely tech events, often events where there's people from all different industries, and I just realize more and more that whoever I speak to in whatever industry, they all have the same problems. They're all seeing the same issues, and people management challenges. So I think I could very easily branch out into other sectors. It's not something I'm looking at the moment. I've there's quite a lot of different coaching support I think I could give within the tech sector that I haven't started to do yet as well. Things around coaching people as they're heading into some kind of leave, like whether that's parental leave, maternity leave, going on sabbatical, all of these things that take you out of a business and then move you back in, I think can be made a lot easier and a lot smoother for the person and the business by having some support around it. Obviously, I've experienced that myself in the last few years, the maternity leave. And so I've got strong kind of personal experience of that and ideas of how things could be done better. There's also things around supporting people going through menopause.
Yeah, that's big at the moment as
Yeah,
well, isn't it?
yeah. So I've got a lot of ideas of other things I could and probably will branch into within the sector, probably before I would expand into other sectors. But I do have clients in other sectors now as well, because sometimes people say, "Oh, do you just do tech? Could you work with us?" And yeah, sure. Talk to people about what they need and what they're trying to achieve, and a lot of the time I can work with them as well. I'm so busy at the moment creating content, having conversations, doing networking, and creating training materials. I've just created a free resource, actually, that so it's things like that that are taking my time. So I've just created a resource for people who are thinking about going into people management, and they're not really sure whether it's going to be right for them. So it's to help them to think through the different things that are going to help them to make the right decision for them, and work out, is this something that is going to interest me, and also open their eyes a little bit to, you're not just going to be doing the job you're doing before, and these are the types of things you're going to have to start thinking about. And the idea is that it's going to really build excitement for people who that is the right move for. And also alongside it is a Word document for the business and that person to use. It's just a list of questions, basically, like a framework to use. And it's to help them to, for everyone to get clear and everyone to get on the same page of what does this role actually involve? Who am I going to be managing? When am I going to start? What support will I get before I start the role? What support will I get when I'm in the role? What do I do if I'm in the role and I'm not enjoying it at all? What kind of thing? What's my responsibilities? What do I have authority over? What do I not have authority over? So it's lots of things that might be quite awkward things to bring up and to ask for some people. But because it's all there laid out in a framework and say, right, we're going to work through this together, it makes it a lot easier to just say, well, we're just following these questions through. And everyone, people on both sides will have a much clearer idea of what the role is, so that everyone can make the right decision and make sure it's the right move for them. And also, often I think it will help the business to realise, oh crap, we haven't thought this role through as much as we thought we had, and we don't have the answer to that, and we don't have the answer to that. But and that's okay. At least everyone then knows there's some gaps there, and we do need to figure that out together. So yeah, things like that. That's called the new manager launchpad. That's
It's a really good idea. Really useful.
Yeah.
Like so many places, I mean, so many places don't even have like an induction process or policy or whatever, and it's like, and that size as well. It's like you're too big not to have your act together at this point.
Yeah, but tech companies, like I said, they move so fast that it never feels like there's time to do things properly. But then it bites you in the bum later on, and you end up getting people going into management roles and then saying, actually, can I move back because I'm miserable? Or they leave the company because they're not doing a good job, and they're feeling pretty rubbish because they were always doing a great job in their tech role before, it just costs so much to train those people, or to give them the role and not train them and then lose them. So
Or
so
even
if
you throw money at them as well, and it's kind of like, if they're not enjoying it and you're not developing them, you're not supporting them, and you're just like, here, have more money. I know it's more stressful, but you're like, we'll pay you more. It's like, that doesn't help. That's not the problem.
No.
I mean, it kind of helps, but
yeah, but usually for like maybe a month, or maybe even not that much.
It's not the issue, is it?
No.
It's not like, because otherwise I'd be saying I'm not getting paid enough. I wouldn't be saying I'm being overworked and I'm not enjoying my role.
Yeah, exactly. So it just made sense for me that to create that resource to make things easier for everybody to get it right. At the moment, I'm creating things like that, and and creating. There's some new workshops that I'm going to be delivering on just how to manage better. And so I'm working through my very long list of things to do, and then one day eventually I'll get to. Well, I'll never get to the end. I'm not going to try and fool myself. There'll always be a big to-do list.
I want to specifically ask about your maternity leave experience. So, were you still employed at that point? Like, at what point did you make the jump? Did you jump to being in business for yourself post the child, or was it during pregnancy? Yeah,
it was. Yeah, I went back after maternity leave for a bit over a year.
Was that a phased transition, and did they know what you were planning, or was it kind of like, here's my date, I'm leaving, and then you leave on the Friday, you start working for yourself on Monday?
So when I came back from maternity leave, it was really difficult actually coming back into the business for various different reasons. Um, but because of the size of the business, and we were at a point where we were scaling up, it meant there was a lot of change. A lot of new people came in while I wasn't there. I didn't have that much contact with the business while I was on maternity leave. I mean, I was fairly busy, and yeah, there wasn't that much contact. So by the time I went back, I felt probably quite removed. Before I felt really very much part of the business because I joined them when they were really pretty small, and then they were growing really fast. So yeah, as I said, while I was away during that year, there was a lot of change. So I came back in, and we were then still working remotely, mostly. Some people went in here and there, but mostly people worked remotely. So it wasn't that easy to get to know the people who had joined in the meantime, and none of them knew who I was either. So I put in quite a bit of effort to try to help that by just organising one-to-ones with different people, but that takes quite a lot of time when you're trying to do your job as well, when there's a lot of different people that you're trying to get to know, and it's not the same as going to the kitchen and making a coffee and there's someone there, and so you have a nice chat. It's much more, has to be much more deliberate and organised. And yeah, so that was tricky. The structure of the company was changing a lot as well, because they ended up selling to a larger company. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of change going on in the build up to that, to get them ready to sell and to get the structure right. And so there was so much change. I came back, a lot had changed, a lot was still changing, and then we were sold to a larger company, and that's I guess I had to make the decision then. Am I going to now put in the effort to learn about this new larger company and make my mark here and find what my place is, or am I going to go out and build my own business? So that came into it as well. The fact there had been so much change in the company, it just felt like the right time.
And also the change in your own life, like, that's not a small change.
Yeah, both
I mean,
of those
it
things.
Is a small change as
Yeah,
well.
both.
It's a huge.
Yeah, both of those things together. I mean, the fact that they were happening at the same time, it's just really everything pointed me in the direction of, right, it's now or never really is the ideal time to.
And it was during lockdown. But I mean, I suppose towards the end of lockdown. What are we talking?
Yeah, when I had my
22?
little girl, it was in April 21. So things were just starting to open up here and there. So there were no antenatal classes in person, everything was online. And the local coffee shop was just starting to open, which was amazing because there was actually somewhere that you could stop off at, and yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Some different four walls to look at. Hooray!
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy time, isn't it? It's like to think about. You're just like,
Yeah, and to go through pregnancy and not be able to see your family or friends and be on all these work calls, and then every now and then if I'd have to get up to go and get something, then people would see my huge stomach and be like, oh yeah, you're pregnant,
oh yeah,
aren't
we
you?
forgot about that.
Yeah. It was very strange to go through all that and not be able to see people. And I saw my dad and his wife came up from Norfolk. I think things had relaxed or rules allowed us to meet outside in the garden.
But then, weren't we?
Yeah, so I saw them a few days before I gave birth for the first time during my pregnancy. So I
my
only
God.
saw them once, but it was nice that I did get to see them that once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose on the plus side, at least you didn't have everyone. I mean, there's good and bad to it, but I have heard people complaining about like, I wish people would leave my belly alone.
Yeah.
Like, oh, can I touch your bump and stuff? So
Yeah, I didn't have any of that.
Ups and
but
downs to that.
Yeah, I did. It did feel shame to not kind of share the experience and to be hiding it away. But yeah, I did. There would have been positives as well, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good push, like to have it because it is an hour. It's like, well, I'm here, so
Yeah, and having
know.
a child just totally changes your view on life and the world and everything in so many ways. Like I said before, it's thinking about her future. It's also thinking about my life and what do I want to do with my life now. And actually, I don't have as much freedom or choice as before because it's such a big responsibility that
yeah, I've got something important to do now.
yeah
I've got to raise this human.
yeah and also it made it more scary because got mortgage and bills to pay and taking such a big risk when you actually have another human being that you're responsible for and need the money to look after them. It did make it scary as well, but I did my I made my spreadsheet budget and made sure I was prepared, and I had a bit of money there to make things a little bit
Cushion.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess as well. I mean, did you go in with some clients in mind, or did you just like? I'm guessing you went in with a bit of a plan, so you had like maybe 1 or 2 clients to initially start off with, so that you had something there.
That would have been a good idea, wouldn't it?
You just went, I'm open now.
Yeah. Well, I had some one-to-one clients because to start with, I was just working with individuals, and I already had some clients at that point. I was talking to a lot of people on Instagram, people showing interest and people wanting my services and wanting to be coached. So it wasn't that there was just nothing, and then I had to go out there and find some work.
Okay, so let's do the UBI question. So if there was a universal basic income, how might that have changed things for you? I think it would have made maternity leave a bit better, hopefully.
Yeah.
Like how might that change things for you? I mean, would it make a difference to you now? Would it help to have a regular payment that's like, would that help you plan a bit better? Or
I think there's always peaks and troughs when you have your own business. So I think it would always be nice to have that, to know that you have that money there, whatever's going on with the business. Yeah, I think it would just give some peace of mind, and I think it would help more people to have the confidence to go out and start something on their own as well, because it doesn't feel as high risk. So it would have made things less scary, for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the change question. This gets difficult when you run your own business because you can change a lot of things. So, feel free to be fantastic. I thought, it shows what you know, doesn't it, really? Of like my assumption in this kind of question, most people would be like, well, I'd like more pay, less work to do, and, like more time to do my work in. And most people are like, yeah, that's not the answers. Money rarely comes up, like more money. I'm really surprised at that. I wish I'd get paid more. people will say they want more time. Like, I wish I had more hours in the day to do stuff. They rarely, not enough people say work less either, which is a strange one for me. Of like, doesn't anybody want to work less? So what are your three? You can be pragmatic, you can be fantastical. If you could change any three things about your work, what would you change?
I think the first one we've already covered a bit about social media, just making that all feel a bit easier and not take as long. I would really like to be spending my time doing the coaching because I love it. It's the whole reason I'm doing this. So yeah, waving a magic wand and having that a lot easier, but still be authentically me at the same time would be nice. And there are ways to, make things more efficient and to improve that. And I am doing that as time goes on. And then I think I would like to be home more in the evenings. But I think that's starting to happen now anyway. I was doing a lot of networking, which I find really useful and really interesting. I hated it to start with, to be honest. But I really enjoy it now. Just figuring out how I can help other people. When other people who I meet and connecting other people is I really enjoy that. But a lot of events are in the evenings, and I have a little girl who goes to bed at 7, so I'm at home most of the time. But being home more would be nice. Those are the only I could only really think of two. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
I mean, early on, when your daughter was little, I mean, would it have been easier? Well, no, it wouldn't be easier. But like, I don't know. I guess I'm asking around, like the visibility of children, and especially with like COVID and being online and stuff, like the visibility of newly born kids in workplaces and stuff, and like how that's handled. Like, I don't really have a question here. I'm just thinking about it. So, coming back into the workplace, there is an important thing of, saying this person, you might not have been here when they left for maternity leave, but they were here before you, and all of that kind of stuff. So, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add on it, anything that you want to say about it, but I'm just it occurred to me, and I'm jabbering basically.
I think I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but I'm going to answer something.
yeah.
So,
I'm happy with that.
When I came back in from maternity leave, I think there were things that could have been done that would have made things easier. Like I didn't feel like there was a very good introduction to this. This is the person. She's been here for a long time, and I think there's more that could have been done there. And also, just while you were saying all of that, made me think as well about coming back into the business, and when you're breastfeeding a child, that's tricky. And then that was pretty tricky, and trying to navigate that and trying to work your diary around and say, well, actually, I have to go and pump some milk when I'm in the office at a certain time, so I can't be in a meeting at this point. And I think that could be made a lot more comfortable for new mothers in a lot of instances. I think, like having a nice comfortable place to go and do it. And I don't know what I'm trying to say now either.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes me think of the reasonable adjustments thing, though, isn't it? It's like reasonable adjustments are reasonable adjustments, but it's that sort of thing of within work. There's this mentality that no, we aren't. No, yes, we are people, but we're not people. We're not biological beings. We control ourselves, and we're not spending however long in the toilet, and we will check when you go to the toilet. It's like, oh, I'm not allowed to be a biological creature in this environment.
Yeah.
But the reality is, yes, we are very biological creatures, as COVID showed us. But yeah, and there are better ways to do that, and there still is that kind of, oh, can some reasonable adjustment be made for me? Like I've mentioned, sort of falling earlier in the week and being in pain and stuff, and it's like, if you can only sit for so long. You can only sit for so long. You're not being awkward by going, oh no, they said you're being more awkward by, damaging yourself or, making yourself really uncomfortable or, in your example, not even either, being seen to make a fuss going out of the meeting, or not necessarily, but, could be perceived that way, or not going to it at all because it's kind of like, oh, well, that makes things more complicated. Yeah, again, I don't really know what my point is with that. I'm kind of thinking out loud, but it's that whole, that whole idea that we can't bring our biological selves into work because it's too, it's not clean enough. It's like this is a workplace. It has to be machinery and mechanisms and stuff, very mechanical and
definitely, and. Also unrelated to anything we've been talking about, but this conversation made me think about it. I was talking to someone this week who works in quite a modern company, you'd think, and they still have clocking in and out cards.
It's amazing.
Because I brought up the conversation. I said, when I first moved up here, the company I worked in IT department, but they had a factory as well, and so everybody had to clock in and out when they got there. And I was saying this as like, can you believe that was happening 8 or 9 years ago? And when the guy who I was speaking to said, we still do that. Oh,
amazing, isn't it?
Wow,
amazing.
Yeah, incredible. A good way to.
Especially in it's pure formality as well, isn't it? Because I bet those people are on computers, and I bet there is a record of when they log in, and log off. So why do you need that extra step?
They said that actually there's no consequence to, like, if you clock in late, they don't do anything with it anyway. So it's just it feels like it's just all about. Let's let our employees know that we don't trust them, and we're watching.
Or there's one real old timer there who's really going to kick off if you remove the machine.
Yeah,
Clocks in and out. It's like they've only got 2 more years to go. Then they're out. Then we'll get rid of it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, maybe.
But a lot of the time with companies, like weird things like that. Someone said to me early on, it was a really great sort of thing. It's like, if you see something that doesn't make sense at all, like it hardly benefits anybody, like it's not really working for anybody. It's like, that's a political decision. That's a compromise that someone's made where it's like, no one's happy here, but we're both kind of happy, because it's that sort of thing. I'm half happy because he didn't get everything that he wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't get everything I wanted either, but he didn't get everything he wanted, and that's most important. So we had 2 for the changes. Is there anything else that you want to discuss? We talked about your resource a little bit. Obviously, this is the point where if you want to share website, socials, anything that you want to throw out there, where can people find you? What have you got coming up?
I've got website, which I've shared a link. So it's www.sproutcoaching.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Bianca Spruit. There's not many with my name, so I'm fairly easy to find. The main, the main service that I'm providing to companies at the moment, I've mentioned I do workshops, I do one-on-one. I provide a 6-week program for new managers, and that's like my baby, I guess. And that's 6 weeks of support as people going into their new role. So they've got someone external to the company to come and say, this is going on, I don't know what to do, how do I work through this? And also I'm teaching them during those 6 weeks. Each week they get a new coaching skill to take away and try with their team, so they're building up those skills as well. So but there's more information on my website on that as well.
Thank you again to Bianca for being my guest. Thanks, as always, to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. You can find Bianca on LinkedIn at www.linkedin.com/in/Bianca Spruit, or go to her website at www.sproutcoaching.co.uk. If you would like to contact me about working hours or any of my guests or their interviews or what the hell I'm on about at any particular moment or anything at all working hours related, even about being a guest, yes, you can do that if you're a lawyer, then you can email me about the show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. If you would like to buy Working Hours episodes outside of the main project, either as gift episodes for yourself or for others, you can do that, and you don't need to be based in Leeds for that. If you've been a guest already and you want to buy additional clips or content from your Working Hours episode or interview, then I'm obviously happy to let you do that. If you want to license Working Hours for anything, or if you really want some Working Hours merch, let me know. If you want to contribute financially to Working Hours, you can make a donation of any amount or buy a membership. There's plenty of ways to do that, but the easiest way is via Ko-fi. That's K-O, as in knockout, hyphen F-I, as in hi-fi. So that's ko-fi.com/working hours to make a donation of any amount, and you can also do a membership there. If you would like to make a version of Working Hours for yourself in your own city, then also get in touch to discuss that and how we might boost each other. I've had a huge boost of listens in Singapore, so let's have a Singapore Working Hours. If you're an individual, a business, or an organisation based in West Yorkshire and you would like to make podcast or audio content for your audience, then don't forget you can do that and support Working Hours by buying podcast services from me, Western Studios Leeds. I've already made podcasts for businesses, organisations and individuals in Leeds, as well as the over 100 episodes of Working Hours, and I can give your show as much hands-on or hands-off support as you need. To make your West Yorkshire podcast, email makemypodcast@western-studios.com. Website and social links for Western Studios are in the credits. Outside West Yorkshire commissions will be considered, but it will cost a little more. Website and social links for Western Studios are in the credits. That's at the end of the show. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So work for peace and plan with kindness. Raise your voice and reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Go to western-studios.com and use the contact page on the site to drop me a message about either Working Hours or about your own Leeds podcast project. Keep up to date with Working Hours and find out about the other great Leeds podcasts that Western Studios is involved with by following Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/western_studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Western Studios Leeds is available to loiners to help them realise their own podcast projects for only £30 for an hour of audio podcast work or £40 for an hour of video podcast work. Email makemypodcast@western-studios.com with details of your project and what support you want to get your Leeds podcast made. Whatever your podcast question or need, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.